Hello guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I will be talking about a very important question that has been being asked by a lot of buyers, just a lot of people out in the market, that are we in a housing bubble right now? Is this housing bubble going to pop? And when is it going to pop? So there's a lot of those, all those questions are bunched in together. But like a lot of senior economists in this country, or just as us humans do, is that when something happens to us in the past, we think about it and make conclusions off of that, and most of the time we think that thing is going to happen again. So for us to answer this question, let's look at what happened in the economic crash, or the housing crash that happened in 2008, which started back in the early 2000s and late 90s. So during that time, definitely there was economic expansion happening. It was a dot-com era. A lot of jobs were being produced, and people were buying houses at very high prices. It was the peak of the market. We can say it was the peak of the market then because we saw what happened. And people that were buying these houses were also getting loans on these houses with zero down, minimum equity. There was a lot of malpractice and foul practice that was happening in the mortgage business and banks, and people were just getting loans by just signing their name on the paper. And then following that, you saw that the economy went into a job loss economy where people started losing their jobs, because a lot of the companies that were surfacing in that time, in the dot-com era, if you look them up, I mean, some of them don't even exist in today's time. There were companies, people were getting office buildings left and right, but nobody really knew what the company did. So that was also happening with the whole credit boom and foul practices. And then once people had a job loss, they were not able to make their mortgage payments because, first of all, they weren't even qualified for their mortgage payments. And then banks took on these large mortgages that now they had to somehow figure out how to pay. And then they put it back on the market, but they couldn't recuperate because there were not enough buyers to buy it, because nobody really had the right jobs or the money to buy. So then you know what happened. It's all cyclical. It was a nasty cycle, and boom, the market crashed. So that's what happened then. So now let's see what's happening right now currently in the market to make some conclusions. So right now we did notice that prices have gone drastically up in the last 1 year. In some places, like in some cities of Arizona, almost a 30 to 35% increase in just 1 year. Even here in some of the cities in California, locally here in the Bay Area, you have been seeing that crazy price increase. But what you are also, you probably know if you're in the market, is there are the mortgage industry right now, and what's happening in the mortgage world is that these mortgages are being lent to people, but there's fair lending going on. Paperwork is being checked, guidelines are being followed. But here's what's really different from what was happening in the past crash. People are putting more down payment, whereas in the past, people were getting these mortgages at pretty much zero down or just very low equity. Now that's not happening. And on top of that, people are borrowing debt at a very low rate and low cost. Not only just the purchase loan applications, but in the last 7 to 8 years, we've seen 2 times where the rates have gone down. We saw it a couple of years back, and then now we're seeing it again in the last 2 years. So even people that had bought debt at a higher rate have refied and lowered the debt. So housing debt service payments as a disposable income are at all-time lows. That means people have more of cash flow, and their debt that they have borrowed has a really low payment. And currently there are about 10 million jobs in the economy, and almost half of them need to be fulfilled. After what we saw in COVID, a lot of companies had job losses, then they're rehiring, and then also new jobs are surfacing. So those are the stats. And we are seeing that starting of this year, there's been economic expansion. Not only is inventory starting to come back slowly, which we'll talk about that in a second, but a lot of these job openings are surfacing. Well, now you can argue that, well, there was a lot of jobs that were surfacing back in the early 2000s. if you looked at the jobs that are surfacing right now, who are the big players? Let's just take example in the Bay Area. We have Apple, Google, Amazon, a lot of these medical companies that are building surgical robotic products that do surgeries on you, DNA companies that are working on your DNA. If you did research or you just ask yourself, the products that are coming on the market right now, or the viable products that these companies are actually producing, are they actual good products compared to what we saw in the early 2000s where companies were just surfacing out of nowhere? You can argue that these are actual tangible, real products that are changing and moving things in the industry, companies like Tesla. So when you compare that time to this time, I don't feel that we're gonna go in a job loss economy. And late cycle lending or late cycle buying, when you're buying at the peak, which we don't know if this is the peak yet, but we knew that back then it was the peak because we saw the crash happen. When you're late cycle buying or late cycle lending from a lender's perspective, it's very dangerous when you enter into a jobless economy because that can cause a big crash. And that is not a sign right now from what we just discussed about what kind of jobs are surfacing right now and how strong the job market is. So hence, I don't believe that the bubble is about to crash. But then again, things can happen that we had no idea are gonna happen, as we saw in the year before. It didn't cause a crash to happen because the government stepped in, and also there were companies that were really helping employees retain jobs. So we all worked as a country to hold ourselves up. But there's not to say that things may not come in the future. But right now, looking at these trends and looking at where the job market is, where the demand is, what type of buyers are out there, where the lending practices are, there are no signs of imminent crash or a bubble bursting in the near future. Now, what's gonna happen beyond this time, we will assess it again, but right now, these are my 2 cents, and I feel like we're not headed into a crash. Now, we're probably wondering, well, what's causing all the demand, right? Well, as I've mentioned in my previous videos as well, that construction was already low since early 2014 and 13. After the crash happened, construction companies really didn't want to bear that risk again, so they slowed their construction down. They never really revamped their construction in tangent to how the population was growing. But now when 2020 happened, everything just went on a halt. Construction completely slowed down, buyers lost faith, and then we just relapsed where buyers just woke up and like, hey, home from work environment, blah, blah, blah. So you already had demand there, and then you have more people coming in the market, homes not being produced long enough, seniors not putting their homes on the market, and then you have the youngest population that the number is from 29 to 33. US right now has the youngest population out there, and this population has the most cash. They have RSUs, they have stocks, and these are the people that are the working class. And these people, if they can afford a home, is just American culture. If you can afford a home, you're not gonna rent, as you see in other countries, European countries, where people prefer to rent. So all of this has caused the demand to rise. Now, answering back to the main question is, what's gonna happen? Are we gonna go into a crash? I don't believe we're gonna go into crash in the near future, but I do believe that prices may cool down a bit once we start to see more inventory. That's it for today, guys. I hope this was insightful, helpful. If you enjoyed today's topic, leave me a comment, share this video because I love to hear from you. Until next time, this is Karan Singh from Optimal Homes.